No, we do. We do.
We do.
Yeah, we definitely do. All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:05. Welcome, everybody. Sorry I missed the last meeting. I was at a gymnastics competition, NCAA championships, but I hear that the meeting came in at under 2 hours. I saw the Zoom recording, so it was officially well under 2 hours. So maybe I should have Tiffany run all of these meetings in the future so that we don't run too long. On this list, we have approval of minutes as the first item, but I'm not sure. I just want to get kind of a show of hands how many people have actually had a chance to read them, because they only came out like 10 minutes ago. Eric, I know you did. I tell you what, unless people have objections, why don't we just go ahead and postpone approval of those minutes until the next meeting? What do you say? Is that okay? Okay.
Good to go.
All right, good. Bridget, what about the treasurer's report?
Sure. So we have $1,999.42 in our checking and $5,125.54 in our savings. I did deposit $55 on the 3rd of May. And it was, and I think I sent an email as well. So Vadim, you don't have to speed type because I know I'm a speed talker. I can always resend. We got a $55 check from the Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative. And I know that Marlene emailed Lark so that we can send her a check and a nice card I found on behalf of the Goose Hollow Foothills League for her artwork. And then I was just gonna, I didn't know if this was okay, but I was just gonna throw in a $50 check on my behalf, or I can, take a step and write the check to Goose Hollow and then we can make it all one. I didn't know if there was a rule or a protocol, but either way, we wanna pay the kiddo for her work. Over and out.
All right, thank you, Bridget. I had just called Tiffany and she just appeared on the line. So it's like she read my mind and jumped on because she's going to be on these next 2 bullet points for sure. But as far as board emails exchanged this month, I can't really think of much that was. We did have some communications about Block 7 that just basically dissemination of information. And I'll go ahead and cover all that during kind of a broader discussion on that Madeira Main Street project. So we can go ahead and discuss it. Anybody else remember any particular board emails that that were of interest that we discussed? No? Okay. Well, we'll just move on to the Trash for Cash program. Tiffany, why don't you go ahead and give us a summary of kind of where we are and what we need to do?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. Life got me, and that rarely does happen. But yeah, Trash for Cash. We probably, for Goose Hollow Foothills League, probably should come up with a catchy name for it. I heard through the grapevines that Trash for Cash might be already coined a term. So maybe we call it the Goose Hollow Foothills League Trash for Cash or what have you. Anyway, I'll come back to you guys with a catchy name. But one of the things I wanted to let all of you know is you all approved this piloted program. To do so, we need, in order to roll it out, Neighbors West Northwest and Anastasia wants me to make sure that anybody that's a part of the public safety subcommittee that may have interest in helping out with this program sign a liability form with the neighborhood. Sorry, my cat wants to be in the camera. Get back. And so that's something we need to do. So she also asked me to put together a paragraph of what this Cash for Trash entails, and I submitted that to Scott, and I could read it just briefly. It's actually, you know what? I apologize. I thought I sent it. My information didn't make it on this. Scott, my little paragraph description of Trash for Cash, did you get it?
Yeah, I just didn't post the whole thing. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
And
okay.
I can go ahead and read it.
Well, yeah, could you bring that up for me while I continue talking about other things about Trash for Cash? Because this is kind of that segue into it. This month in Goose Hollow, we had 2 solve cleanups that happened. And if you look around Goose Hollow, we're pretty darn clean. And I want a special shout out to all of our solve volunteers that made that happen. We cleaned up Collins Circle. We cleaned up the Market Street stairs. Those were really, really trashed out. You know, that set of stairs that goes up to the Southwest Hills, they were no longer, you couldn't even use them. They had so much feces and trash on them. And I was shocked when I discovered that staircase. You know, the one that we are always talking about, some home builders blocking off. Well, I thought to myself, well, we just made it a little bit more easier to use those stairs for the interim. We cleaned all through Goose Hollow. Every street looks pretty good out there, up by PSU. And what we did discover is the cash or trash works for those areas that are hard to reach areas, like the unsheltered camping areas where you have to really work with those campers. So I refrained from doing any of those activities till we get that liability form signed and provided to Anastasia. So, but at least we got all the other areas cleaned. One of the things I did notice when I was out there cleaning, I did tent counts. We have 58 tents, and that's roughly 116 people in our Goose Hollow boundaries. And I did a lot of outreach this month. I talked to a lot of unsheltered folks in our boundary lines to see where they're at, what they need, if they're able to safely relocate, what have you. Made some good connections there just to really understand our folks out there right now. Our tent counts are down for Goose Hollow. I don't know what to think about that. That's good, that's bad, that's whatever. I don't know. But our population, we know, moves. It moves, it's dynamic. It moves month to month, day by day, what have you. So right now I look at the span of the tents across Goose Hollow, and mostly they are all up on 14th Avenue and up up by the Highway 26 and Montgomery, Southwest Montgomery, and 14th and 13th and 12th there. Yeah, so there's a few spotty couple tents here and there, but for the most part, the inner core of Goose Hollow is looking fantastic if you walk through that area. I have to give also special credit to Pacific Echelon, that private security consortium. They went in effect April 15th, and they were very instrumental in the core of Goose Hollow, from Burnside to Lincoln High School to the Mac Club and to 14th Avenue, doing outreach on a lot of those unsheltered folks. So if they didn't want outreach, then they probably quietly migrated somewhere else. I don't know, because along that grid is about 16 hours a day of like a walking foot patrol type service. You know, they're providing private security, but they're also helping with the mediating the trash cleanups and power washing the streets right there. And yeah, so has anybody on this call seen what Goose Hollow looks like right now?
A little bit.
I have. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I walk every day with my dog. I jog to the Mac. I go to my favorite coffee shop, the Robot Coffee Shop. And I can tell you it is looking so much better. I was away for a month to Santa Monica. And I came back and I saw a difference, and I can't express to you the gratitude I feel. I know it's not perfect. I know we have a ways to go, but I mean, I can see the difference. And I'm so grateful to the security. I see them, I say hi, I stop them, and I thank them. And at first they're always scared, but then they realize I'm harmless. So thank you. I see the difference. I see them walking. I'm just so grateful.
Thank you. Hey, Scott. Yes, Marlene.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say I had emailed you because I wanted to know how to be a part of that, to be part of the security. I know that I'm on the edge, I think is the issue, is that I'm barely in Goose Hollow.
So you asked a great question, and actually, forgive me if I didn't respond back. I was actually thinking about you the whole time. We wanted Pacific Echelon to get their bearings with at least 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year of coverage right now, and figure out what we could do for the core. And then once they became stabilized, we call it phase one we're in.
Yeah.
We're going to go into phase 2, and phase 2 includes people like yourself, and also maybe a little bit closer to Collins Circle too, to see if we can expand our boundary lines now that we are successful in the core of Goose Hollow. Because at the end of the day, it takes residents and businesses to pay for that service. So.
And
Yeah.
do you have any idea any thoughts on what we would be paying? Just so we have an idea, like for what residential people would pay into it?
Everybody pays a different rate, and we also look at people's situations too. Not everybody can pay as much. So that's a phase 2 question, and we just met this Tuesday. So I can't answer that. Yeah, but offline, I'll reach back to you, because we are meeting and we're trying to figure out structural wise, because if you look at Goose Hollow right now, it looks pretty good, and we want to keep the momentum up, and we don't want those people to have to keep paying. We should all pay to make sure outreach gets to all those folks, right?
And any thoughts on what the plan is for 13th? Because 13th, sorry. Because I didn't realize how close I was to the border of downtown and Goose Hollow. So for us, it's, trying to walk around there is pretty hard. I was hoping once Portland State got back, maybe, we'll see a little bit more, but Montgomery's pretty bad. 13th is really bad. I just didn't know if you had any insight.
Yeah, I have insight on that. You all probably saw the Oregonian about how the city's going to start enforcing the camping situations that get out of hand, and they have criteria that's outlined. So I have a feeling that that Montgomery spot that you're referring to hits all of those points in there. Whether the city acts upon that, we'll find out pretty quickly. But here's another side note. A lot of the the educational institutions have been meeting with the city, because they're now opening back up, and student safety is very important. And so they do get higher markings on that rating system in terms of if there's active encampments that are exhibiting these behaviors that make it so they can't function. So the higher ed schools will get preferential treatment. And I think it's actually on the criteria too. So, and I talked to PSU today, actually, because I said, oh, good, now we've got the guidelines out. What's our next step? And so I'm hoping to see some more movement now with that. And they were in agreement. So hopefully that conversation happened today, and we'll see what happens this month.
You.
Yes,
Thanks,
Doug. Go ahead, Doug.
What I see is more movement in the locations. There's a reduction, but there seems to be, like around Collins Circle, we get a tent coming in, and then they get warned off and it's gone. And that's happened about 5 times over the past month. So they're stubborn about it. But as far as with Marlene, what she's talking about, the 13th Street ramp area, past Market, that's really bad, and that'll take special work. And I particularly, as you know, resent all the bicycle parts, and because I've had bikes stolen more than once. So it's
that is definitely hits many of those checkpoints on that for high criminality and drug transaction and active cars. I mean, and they know it too. So yeah, we could we'll spare that conversation, just because we know that now that I looked at the grid. By the way, you guys, I went through every street of Goose Hollow, and I documented every unsheltered tent in every situation. So that is definitely our hardship for Goose Hollow, and for PSU too, and that daycare that's now open as well. So I'm hoping the city will do the right thing in the next 30 days. So
PSU keeps its area clear, but I don't think it's responsible for the ODOT property. It's a different issue, and so that's another.
Well, ODOT got clearance to start moving tents off of ODOT land too. So we're gonna see an interesting little tent dance this summer, and I'm kind of curious to see if the city is going to come through with the right alternative shelter spacing ideas, or we need resources for these people to go to, and I just don't want to see them moving around but nowhere to go. I would like to see less traffic trash and biohazards, sure. I did notice two things that they gave us in Goose Hollow, extra trash cans. I'm sorry, toilets, portable toilets. They just quietly just showed up in the last 2 weeks. And every time I think that, I go, oh, that means that they have plans for them to stay here if they're going to add more toilets, which is, I have no opinion on that, but just to let you know that more toilets showed up. And then I did notice Clean Start. I kind of warned you guys, I think a couple months ago, they started doing trash pickups from 12th all the way up to 16th. So you're going to see less trash on our streets. Sol volunteers are out there, but we're also putting those trash bags on the corners, and they're doing their thing and they're doing their pickups. So we may see more, we may still see the tents there. And as they get moved around, they're just going to be moving around. So I think our best bet is to work on outreach to get these folks to a shelter or another place that's more permanent. So did I cut out? Okay, so back to trash for cash. Scott, do you want to read that description for cash for trash?
Yes.
Okay.
So the whole once a month, designated board members or members of the safety livability subgroup offer cash to reimburse from the GHFL Bottle Drop fundraiser account to unsheltered individuals in Goose Hollow neighborhood boundaries to bag up their trash around a tent or an area determined that a high need trash area on a sidewalk or street in Goose Hollow. High need trash areas are defined as an area SOL volunteers cannot clean up due to guidelines. Maybe you can explain what those guidelines are after this, though, Tiffany. These identified areas will be approached with respect, safety, and community outreach in mind. While Metro trash bags will be given to unsheltered along with gloves and trash grabbers if need, remind unsheltered bagging their trash to not put sharps, needles, biohazards in trash bags. Place full closed bags on a designated corner for a phone call or website scheduled pickup to be placed through the Metro website. All transactions done must be documented via pictures of the trash bags, meaning number of bags placed on the street corner. A NWNW liability insurance form must be completed by all members that are a part of this initiative. Is there anything more that you wish to add, Tiffany?
No, that's it. And that's exactly what Anastasia needs. Does anybody have any questions about this or concerns about this program? If Goose Hollow was to, we already approved of this pilot, but with the liability, does that make sense to keep people safe? Like say if you board members want to go out there and participate in this, do you think that sounds appropriate, that description?
Can you send it to us? I'd like to read it if possible.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. I was just gonna jump in and circle back to something, Tiffany, but you were asking about Goose Hollow and how it looked, Sean and I participate in the Adopt One block. I'm going to come back to that, but we were out recently after your solve and definitely noticed a difference. So thank you all so much. It does look fantastic. But I did want to mention Adopt One block too, because I know for myself, I haven't been able to make it to some of those solve things. I haven't been able to make it to any of them and still wanting to participate. So if you aren't familiar, you can sign up to adopt a block in the area and you can go on. There's a lot still available all over the area. And they'll send you gloves, they'll send you a trash grabber, they'll send you buckets, and they'll send you trash bags and everything as well. So just another way to participate and jump in. But same thing, they also send kind of like the biohazard, they send you a little biohazard container as well for needles and things should you come across them.
Hey, Catherine, I'm so glad you brought that up because I know Adopt a Block program and we had meetings with Sam Adams about it because we're really they're trying to push this idea of Adopt a Block. I love Adopt a Block, especially for areas that are not, say like your street's perfectly acceptable. But what I have been finding is people really want to do some amazing work and they'll try to adopt an area that's in a high needs, active shelter environment, and then a volunteer gets in a weird situation where they're exposed to biohazards. Or for example, when I was out yesterday, when I go to these active areas, I bring a Street Roots ambassador with me because the environment can switch on you. And I know that pretty closely. And yesterday someone had a mental crisis. They were running after, like aggressively going after some older Solve volunteers, and my Street Roots ambassador stepped in the way to protect them and make sure that that person wouldn't do something that would hurt them. And that's because we were getting a little too close to the tent. So I think for Solve volunteers, you have to give respective space. If you're adopt-a-blockers, you should do the same thing as Solve. That say stay set at least 10 feet away from an active encampment. Don't try to clean up around their tent. We don't understand what is really a valuable item to them. Like, for example, I had a Solve volunteer that saw a chair next to a tent. It had broken off legs. It looked like trash. And of course, the person grabbed it, and the unsheltered person was freaking out. That's my chair you're taking. And even though it looks, you can't even use it, it's something to them, and that can trigger them. So adopted the block really has a couple limitations. It's the trash that you pick up is something that you have to take home and dispose of in your own trash, or find a city trash can maybe you could find to dispose of it. That active encampments have biohazards. And when I was cleaning up, say, for example, Collins Circle, I had to clean up human feces and needles and things that really adopt-a-blockers should not be doing, and or Solve volunteers. But I do something on the side, right? I was a former nurse. I handled it appropriately with all the right gear. So adopt-a-block, they give you a sharps container, but if you get poked, that's at your own risk. And why would you be cleaning an area that has many drug needles around it? You might be in an area that is at risk. So anyway, so adopt-a-block is perfect for Goose Hollow right now. I wouldn't say going up and doing the 405 corridor next to Outside In is a good area for adopt-a-block, but everywhere else is just fine. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and I was just talking to them because adopt-a-block was trying to convince people to go to Old Town Chinatown and adopt-a-block's right in front of the most vulnerable people in Portland, because we need it the most there. And I said, no, I'm sorry. That's where we use our specialized services of Portland to work with our folks, because they have increased mental health issues, and they're formerly incarcerated, or they're victims, or they have trigger points. So there's my talk track. But Adopt-a-Block has heat maps, and actually so many blocks available. I would love it to see if Northwest District could take up this idea. I know downtown, the residents down there are doing it. But what I found was some of the volunteers, they were trying to, they didn't know the area, but they wanted to come right over to an area that needed it the most. And that was like, say, Greyhound facility. You know, I had a little elderly lady and said, oh, I really want to help the Greyhound facility. And that was someone got shot last week. And I said, no, I don't think that's actually for you. Right. So, and then there's a woman from Beaverton that wanted to adopt the North Park blocks right there by the sanctioned camp. And I said, no, I don't think that's for you either. But Frank from Adopt-a-Block thinks that if you want to put yourself at harm's risk, go for it. And I'm just not that person. Right. So I always say, know your neighborhood first, know you're unsheltered before you walk into a situation, keep safe and reasonable. I advocate for Solve first because they do great trainings. But Catherine, you definitely know the Solve world, I'm sure, and you know how to keep yourself safe. And you're probably not walking into some active encampment situation, right? No. Okay.
Not so
there
much.
We go. Yes. So
It's my day job.
Yeah. And we should all adopt, Marlene, all of us should adopt a block, but not the Greyhound block.
Yeah. It is a good way, though, just to circle back, it is a good way to get involved for people who are kind of aware of all of those things that you're talking about, Tiffany, but still want to feel like you're contributing to your neighborhood in a really sort of tangible and kind of satisfying sort of way, immediately satisfying kind of a way. So, yeah.
Yeah, they do have, I have to give out a shout out to such great teams in Portland right now, because the big thing is right now is helping us clean the environment so we can make ourselves presentable for our communities to come back online again. Ground Control, Trash for Peace, they use people who've probably lived on the street to clean up those active encampments. I always say use those services first. So eventually I'd like to see those services come through our neighborhoods and offer the service of Trash for Cash that we're doing. And I've talked to those organizations to come down to Goose Hollow. Right. So eventually I hope some of these programs that we offer are just temporary for our 2021. Right. All right. Thank you. Should I move forward? I kind of got off on a tangent.
Sure.
I probably lost people. Next one on the agenda is the 5 Chord neighborhood update. I named this little nickname the 5 Chord neighborhood, and that means all 5 neighborhoods of downtown are aligned with each other. That's Goose Hollow, Northwest District, Pearl District, Old Town, Chinatown, and downtown neighborhoods. What we started doing was I looked around in our downtown community and said, wow, we all have something in common. We all have issues that we should probably align with and support each of our respective neighborhoods. So we meet like debatably twice a month, if not more. And what we talk about are like 5 issues. Number one, I invite all the public safety livability chairs from all of these neighborhood associations together at the table. I've also included the business associations at that table too. And I said, number one is trash abatement. We need to look at our environments and we need to figure out what to do. That whether we organize monthly solve cleanups, or we do adopt a block, or we do more aggressive cleanups with the right services to help the active encampments. Number two, or before I get to number two, Solve actually got approval to maybe use dumpsters to help some of our neighborhoods with these bigger cleanups. That's another thing is active encampments generate a lot of trash and takes a lot of hours to clean. We need dumpsters. So that was kind of exciting in the new funding that Solve got through the city to help clean up the trash. So number two is graffiti abatement. Of the 5 neighborhoods, we know what graffiti is most offensive in our communities. We need to report the graffiti, but we also need to clean up the graffiti or ask for help cleaning the graffiti. And that's through funding, like grant dollars and what have you. So number one, report the graffiti. When I go through Goose Hollow, I look for the most offensive graffiti areas. In the last 30 days, the 937 Southwest Salmon building that was across from Lincoln High School, did you all see that building? It was covered head to toe. And I met with the business owners there and we got it cleaned up. But what happened was for Earth Day, April 24th, all 5 of us neighborhoods rallied together with 120 volunteers, and we all got properly trained, and we got these really cool graffiti kits. So if you guys want them, I'll give you graffiti kits. They in the graffiti bucket is a chemical that you spray on the graffiti on the approved surface, and I can tell you guys later offline what types of surfaces. Let it soak in, and then you take a rag and you clean it off. It takes some scrub power. It's a good little arm workout. But if you guys get these graffiti kits, I'd like a business in our community to house some of these graffiti kits. And so if you guys want those graffiti kits, we could go to that business to get them, right? So I need to probably put that in our newsletter next month of how anybody could get these graffiti kits and learn how to clean up the basic graffiti in our neighborhood. Now, when it comes to more aggressive graffiti, like on a business building, we have to get permission first. And I went around and got liability forms signed off. And then volunteers, we use volunteers to roll out paint on these approved places. Now, I did get approval with ODOT to roll out paint on the 405 structures. And we just got graffitied again. And I went through and I looked through and I'm like, oh, I gotta rally some volunteers. So I guess my question to all of you today is, does anybody, put it in the chat, want to help me roll out paint in Goose Hollow? Or would you like to be a part of if a riot was to come through and there's some graffiti, some hate graffiti, would you like to help clean graffiti off after a rioted event? And that might take place in Goose Hollow or in the other 4 neighborhoods of downtown. Does anybody want to? No? Yeah? Okay, Bridget. Cool. Well, I don't want to put you guys on the spot. Just come find me afterwards. Oh, you too, Doug? You want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it. But one of the points I'd like to make is that on new graffiti, and if they're in the neighborhood and you make it nice and clean, a clean surface, flat surface, they will come back and just do it again. I don't know if there's a philosophy of knowing that if you just sort of strike through what they've done, that's a better short-term goal, because then that'll show, it'll ruin what they've done and there's a reaction made. But if you come in with gray paint and just make it all nice and pretty, they'll just come back with the spray pans.
Well, yes, definitely. If you guys come to the public safety meeting, we could go a little bit more specific on how to do that. It's striking it out. Yeah, I spoke to ODOT about this, and this is what they want on their walls is strikeouts, because you don't want to create a new palette for them to, or a new you know, wall to cover. But what we do know is we have to do something, because that shows our community is fighting back for hate graffiti. So I'm, you know, the kind of things that really shouldn't be there. There's some pretty artwork out there, but I hardly see it anymore. It's all hate. It's all hateful. Yeah. So, and then speaking of graffiti, sorry if I'm cutting
Could I
someone
just
off.
ask, may I ask
Sure.
a question, please? So
Sure.
I had read that there is a coating that once you get the graffiti off, there's some kind of coating that makes it very difficult for the new graffiti to stick. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, Paul Watts of the graffiti, he's the city contractor. I have a good relationship with him, but that costs money to apply that. So that's why you won't see that always. He always wants me to encourage people that have murals on the side of their building to have that special coating. But we can't just put that coating on everything, unfortunately, because it costs money. But I did get, a lot of people are behind me on this graffiti cleanup. I've got so many gallons of drums of paint donated. We need to probably start making some plans to do some of this cleanup. So if I put out an email to you board, would you just let me know if you'd be interested in some of these activities? I know you all have lives, and I'll try to refrain from weekends, right? Because once summer weather hits in Portland, I don't expect you guys to stay put and volunteer or anything like that. But back to graffiti. I want to tell you, I'm super proud of Goose Hollow. There is a high school student in the Goose Hollow neighborhood, and she found me after I helped organize the 120 volunteers of downtown for the Earth Day cleanup, and you probably saw it in the news. She wanted to do a senior project on graffiti. Hate graffiti, because there's a trend right now with the young population that graffiti is a piece of art. It is a piece of art until it's not, when it's hateful. And so she went around and interviewed all the I lined her up with so many businesses and also artists of BIPOC communities that put out these beautiful murals that mean something, and then someone comes up and graffiti some hateful tag on it, and really disrupts the whole point of what Portland's doing right now, is embracing any kind of beautiful art. And so she did it. Yeah, she did it. And I think if Alan Clausen's on this call, Alan, did you ever talk to this young gal? Oh, he's got his microphone. There he is.
Yes, I did talk to her. I had a good interview with her. She's sharp.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so we gotta, when she puts out that story, I would love to share it with you, because I showed to her small businesses of color who were directly impacted by, they were trying to put up murals on their businesses to show their support for something. And then someone would come through the neighborhood, wouldn't even know anything about the neighborhood, and would put some hate tag on it. And that was kind of the opposite of what Portland was trying to do. So yeah, she did that story. I'm kind of excited to see what she produced. So hopefully next time I see you guys, I'll get that her work. So say that again.
I had not a question, but on the 5 core neighborhood update, if you go to the link, you can sign up so that they'll send you a reminder of when the meeting is, and the time, and the Zoom link, and all that. And I bring that up just for, unfortunately, no memo went out about last night's meeting of the Safety and Parking Committee. So just to have a backup, if you sign up for that link, you only get the things from their livability committee. And since for at least the next, I believe, 8 weeks or so, our meetings will be held in conjunction with them in the downtown neighborhoods, it might be easier to get the information.
Okay. Okay, good point. And actually, you know what, Eric brought up a good point, which I wanted to ask you guys your thoughts of, because the 5 neighborhoods are aligned with some of the issues that I already brought up. One of the other issues was rioting. They were very concerned with after 9 o'clock, these groups that would come through creating damage and destruction. And we decided that it was probably best if for the next 8 weeks, if the neighborhoods that are directly impacted, we could support each other, because it's not right to just watch another neighborhood next to you fall victim to destruction after 9 o'clock. And so we thought if we all meet for public safety livability meetings once a month, the first Wednesday of the month at 5:30, Pearl District will host it. And what's kind of exciting for the next 8 weeks is we'll go around the table and we'll probably get guest speakers. Central Precinct will be there and kind of give you all an update of like public safety, what's happening with public safety in downtown, but also you'll learn what's happening in your respective neighborhood too. Like, for example, if I was to present the first week of June, chances are I'd say for Goose Hollow, we got a problem with fires, propane tank explosions. I feel like one every week, and it takes out trees, and we worry about people's lives being impacted. We see the smoke in the air, what's going on. And so we need to worry about that public safety concern. Second is, over off Gander Ridge, we got a problem with an arsonist over there and someone that's vandalizing cars to the point of several $1,000s worth of destruction. That there's a person that's living in the back of the camp, right, Marlene and I, and he's the one that burnt up 2 cars, like set them on fire, burnt them up to the ground, right, Marlene? And then he's actually a part of 3 other cars where he's damaged several thousands of dollars of damage to them. He's got a thing for just beating up cars. And last week he went for one of my tenants' cars and he beat it with the trash can out of the park. And it cost $3,200 worth of damage. So these are the kind of people that, need to be brought up. Like, hey, we've got an offender in the community creating a lot of damage and he's threatening people in the neighborhood. We got to do something about it. So I'd probably bring that up to Central Precinct. And then I would also say too, during the round robin is, we have a lot of unsheltered people. How many do you have? Like how should we advocate for this bigger group here too? So, and that's the fourth question that I asked the neighborhoods is know your tent counts. I told you Goose Hollow has about 118 people. Old Town Chinatown has 500 unsheltered people on the sidewalks. Pearl District has 88 people on the sidewalks, and downtown's neighborhood hasn't gave me back their census numbers yet, and Northwest District hasn't either. So to me, I would like it if you all knew what the bigger picture looks like, because we have to advocate for bigger shelter options or safe places that can accommodate this amount of people that we've now discovered 2021 has. Yeah. Does anyone?
Yeah. I have a quick question. Has there been any discussion about sidewalks and, when would they be available for use? And I'm going to share something publicly, which I just wanted you to know, Tiffany, and maybe Catherine will be able to help. So I was recently diagnosed with PTSD. So I'm going to therapy for it, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out and what I can help with. So I'm not, and Catherine, you and I, maybe I'll ask you for a couple of things, but I'm not sure if it's better to confront it or do I need to just stay away from it, information. So when you're looking for volunteers and stuff, both because I'm not mobile, and I really feel that being out there for me is a trigger.
Marlene, I have to say you're my neighbor and you're my friend, and I care about you first, and I value just being with you, and I would never want you to be in harm's way. And I have to say the residents up at Gander Ridge, we've been through a lot these past few years. And I got a call today from a gentleman that I've never met before. He's been on Gander Ridge 12 years, and he felt the same way as you, Marlene. He doesn't feel safe in the neighborhood anymore. And it really breaks my heart. And so we've got to get that back. And I felt this year we were starting to to inch forward to get that to back to that place where people feel safe in their community, because I don't want people to move away. I don't. So these initiatives that we bring up, they are hard, but this is where we confront them, and then we'll get through it in 2021 for sure. And for sidewalk accessibility, that should be very important to our community. And with the new guidelines that came out through HUCRP, sidewalk access is one of them. And so I think we should now that we finally got the city to step up and put that down on paper, we need to hold them accountable to that too. So Marlene, I hope that this year gets better for you. So I'm going to find you afterwards and I'll just come visit you. So you're great. And don't leave the board, okay? Don't matter what, don't leave the board. We need you.
Can I say
All right, so just to, Doug, just you, and then I need to wrap this up. So go ahead.
one comment that one progress is a big deal is down on the base of Hall Street where I used to live. They've finally cleared all that foliage and garbage out. People camp there now, but the police can see them. They're visible, and the person that was there for such a long time is gone. So that's one big area where the drug dealers used to hang out. Thank you.
All right, great. So just to put a fine point on the first two bullet points, Tiffany, have we spent any money on Trash for Cash this past month?
$40. And I have to tell you now, the $40 came to Collins Circle. We had to take 16 bags of trash off of Collins Circle, and then there was a over by the PSU Montgomery cleanup, and then the what's that walking trail called? I never know the proper name for it, but it's
Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh
yes, thank
Trail.
you. Yeah, someone told me not to say that, and I get super uncomfortable. So I don't know. Do you think our Goose Hollow neighborhood should like rename it or something? Is this the year of renaming? I don't know, but that's the name I know it of. But yeah, we did a lot of trash abatement off of that trail, and also the ODOT land you see on the hillside. I worked with Unsheltered right there to remove some of the trash off the hillside by the 26.
Okay, and for the 5-core neighborhood, what is your recommendation for the best way to get information about the meetings?
Yeah. So there's two things happening. Vadim and I are the selected public safety chairs that will be a part of the 5-core meeting. But in regards to the community neighborhood association meeting, it's the first Wednesday of every month at 5:30. I will personally send you all a Zoom link information to that Pearl District's Zoom. The Pearl District will host it, but I will, when they go around the room to do the check-ins with the neighborhood, I will personally respond on our behalf. And you guys can watch it too. And you can integrate and you can ask questions as well. So yeah, did I answer that? I will send out the link.
So does that,
and
it's a Zoom link?
7 days.
It's a
Yeah,
Zoom
it's
link.
a Zoom link.
It's hosted, it's hosted by the Pearl District, and it's only going to be for the next 2 months. 'Cause you said
Correct.
8 weeks. So starting August, we're going to be going back to the 3rd Wednesday of the month for our own Goose Hollow Livability, Safety, and Transportation meeting. Is that
Correct. And are we taking August off? Is that what we do? Eric, did you say something about August? Do we take off?
In the past, we've taken August off. But that can be determined by the board.
Yeah, it just depends on what's going on. Most of the time we do, but sometimes we don't. So we'll just play it by ear.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you, will the mailing also then go out to our membership for the next 2 months, that's when our safety and livability meeting will be held?
I would like to continue that. So Scott, what I could do 7 days in advance is I know the Pearl District does such a fantastic job of getting some guest speakers to always show up, and Central Precinct. I could put also our agenda of what we're going to speak about at the roundtable there. Would that be okay with all of you? And I could send that to you in advance, and then we can post it to our membership.
Yes, so I'll go ahead and send out an email via our email system.
Yeah. Hey, I can't see everybody's screen, but do you guys like the idea for the next 8 weeks of listening to everybody in downtown, and maybe getting a little bit bigger picture of the public safety needs of downtown?
Yes. Vote yes.
Great.
It'll be fine.
Great, thank you. I think, yeah, I think I'm done for those 2 talking points. Are we going to follow the schedule here or the agenda? Is it the next one, city council police update? Is that you, Vadim?
Yeah, so I just want Vadim to talk a little bit about, how the budget's going and what's been decided and how that might affect our neighborhood.
Okay, so the most relevant part that I'm going to talk about is the Portland Police Bureau budget. Initially, the mayor asked for a 5% reduction, which was about $10 million. There was a lot of people that actually spoke out at the city council meetings and provided testimony. I know some of the board members from Goose Hollow provided written testimony asking for a smaller decrease or even an increase in the police budget, because obviously there's a lot of crime. Shootings have gone up. I think there's already 400 shootings this year. I'm not sure how many people have actually died from that, but all-time highs. Normally there's about 200 shootings a year. And there's already been, last year there were about 900 shootings. And this is just like shots fired, not actual people hit. And already this year we're over 400. And as far as fatalities this year, we're going to be approaching something like 100 people at this rate, which will be one of the highest fatalities per year in the history of Portland. Last year it was 55, and the year before that, I think it was like 30 something. So police presence is necessary. There were a lot of people that provided testimony asking city council to increase or narrow the budget rescissions. And that sort of worked because of the federal money that was coming into Portland or is coming into Portland, as well as slightly more taxes than they expected. It looks like there will only be about let me see, I believe something like a $2 million reduction in the police bureau budget, roughly about that, of which that money will be used to, or the additional money that was not lost will be used to hire 30 additional police officers and additional public safety support specialists, which are kind of unarmed versions of police officer. They receive less training, they take reports and things like that, but they're still part of the Portland Police Bureau. And there's a transition plan for those individuals to actually become police officers if they so choose. So yeah, it's sort of a win, but at the same time, the police budget is being reduced somewhat. What was interesting is there was a report that came out in the Oregonian recently about a survey that was performed by, I believe it's DHM. And we hear a lot about the defunding movement and how Portlanders want to defund the police. But the survey that took place in Portland and the surrounding areas show that within Portland itself, only about 25% of the population wants a decrease in the amount of police officers we have. Something like 43% of those of the people that were surveyed in Portland want to actually increase the amount of police presence that we have, and another 30 some odd percent want to retain the number of police officers we have. So something like 75% of the population in Portland, a little bit less than that, wants to either keep PPB at their current levels or actually increase, and only about 25% want a reduction. And that number actually is even more skewed when you look at the suburbs. So I know they're vocal. I know they're, people who are against the police are burning down buildings and creating a lot of havoc, but they're definitely in the small minority of Portland population. So let me see if there's anything else here. Yeah, and part of the money saved is going to be from voluntary pay freezes at the police bureau. Both their sworn unionized people and unsworn and unsworn police people as well are taking in order to protect the amount of people that they have working there. Yeah. So what I'm saying, I guess, is also the advocacy does work. The Public Safety Action Coalition, of which Tiffany and I are members of, we testified at the city council meetings. We provided written testimony. And I know a lot of other people did as well, both directly to city council individually, as well as to the various sign-up lists that they had and the forms that they had online. And I'm sure the police are grateful for that. Those 30 extra slots, 30 extra police positions that we were able to save are going to be able to keep staffing levels at a somewhat adequate level. The police try to keep about 360 officers available at any one point in time. Based on their retirement demographics and what things look like, we're actually going to dip below that next year. So 2022, we're going to see less police out there, but because we're going to be able to hire 30 people over the next few months, and it takes about 18 months to train those people, that toward the end of 2022, they'll be able to have more people on the streets and hopefully deal with the crime. The statistics that they always point out is that PPB has 800 something officers out there, while a city the size, similar size of Portland, Oklahoma City, has about 1,300. We have about 80 detectives out there, which are, the reason we have graffiti out there is because there used to be detectives that would keep track of who's doing the graffiti and actually arrest those people. We don't have those detectives anymore. So now we have about 80 detectives out there investigating all the crimes that are happening in Portland. Whereas a city the size of similar size Oklahoma City has almost twice as many detectives as that. So, if you look at the crime that's going up, if you look at the graffiti, if you look at all those things, someone needs to actually investigate that, and the police are the ones that are doing it, and they're really short-staffed. So, yeah, this budget, we did better than we thought. Next budget, they're going to need some help as well, because these funding, the increase in funding for this year, or the slight lessening of the decrease, I should say, is only a 1-year increase that they had. So next year, they're going to have to ask for more money in order to keep hiring police officers. So keep that in mind when the budget time comes around next year.
Thank you, Vadim. I have a question about something that you raised last month. I'm just reading through the minutes, and you say that the city council extended the housing crisis emergency declaration, but at the same time, the zoning changes are intended to replace and supersede that. Because you and I had this conversation about whether, as long as this emergency housing declaration is in place, that people can still camp on sidewalks and in parks and those type of things. Are you now saying that because this zoning change supersedes that they can't do that anymore?
Actually, I don't think that's the case anymore. So they changed the zoning laws from their initial very broad reading of where people can put temporary shelters to a more narrow reading. And that was supposed to replace the emergency declaration, which allows city council to kind of willy-nilly decide where camping can take place and where temporary shelters can take place. So the fact that they decided to both at the same time pass these zoning changes, but also declare another emergency, it seems a little at odds with one another. So I think politically it'd be very hard for them to say, based on the declared emergency, that people can camp or temporary shelters can be erected in public parks or in parking lots. I do think from at least the legal standpoint, that's kind of where they've left themselves some buffer. So yeah, it's unfortunate they decided to take both tracks at the same time like that.
Can I ask a question, please? I have a question. Was my understanding that there was a big hullabaloo about being able to go into the parks, and there was a huge backlash, and that was when Lauren Murphy, my friend, wrote that long letter, and we adopted it with the GHFL and sent it in. And it was my understanding that the city overwhelmingly backed down on the ability of homeless people to camp in parks and in the parking lots, because they tried a loophole where, okay, well, not the parks, but the parking lots. And so it actually, the people in the community said, no, I mean, that's insane. If they go into the parking lot, do you think they're going to stay there? No. So they were both banned from what I understand. So now I'm hearing that the parks are fair and the parking lots adjacent to the parks are fair game. I mean, so what is it? I'm all confused.
So yeah, you're right, Sherry. It's very confusing. The zoning, the emergency declaration allows city council to supersede zoning laws. Typically, if there's some sort of natural disaster or something like that, then they would be able to declare emergency declaration, and then they can avoid some of the constraints that are in our city code. And they've been doing that with for the last few years with the urban camping as an emergency declaration. And that's one of the reasons they're able to set up temporary shelters within public spaces like city centers and things like that. The whole premise for why they were making these changes to the city code is so that they would not have to continue doing these emergency declarations. But right before they passed the city code changes, they quickly passed another emergency declaration. So what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know how to read those tea leaves. I don't know whether they just passed it in order to give themselves a little extra time before the zoning changes went into effect or something else altogether. But it is very disturbing because both those things did not have to happen at the same time as they apparently did.
So Sherry, one thing that I've noticed downtown is they've put fencing up around the parks across the street from the courthouse in order, I suppose, to keep people off that land, at least temporarily, so that they can recover the plantings, the grass and things like that. It doesn't seem like they would go through that trouble and have all the plants grow back if they were just going to remove the fences and then have people move back and start camping on that property. That just seems like a waste. So I know that they have legally maybe some wiggle room under this emergency housing declaration to allow people to do that, but it really is kind of what kind of instructions are the police going to be given to remove people from sidewalks and parks and parking lots. And I feel just based on just seeing those fences around the parks that they might err on the side of just trying to keep people out of the parks, certainly downtown, and maybe drive them elsewhere. Doug?
Yeah, it's ostensibly for repairs of the grass. Of course, the grass on that park, those 2 blocks, is not good anyway. So are they going to really repair it? But I predict that those fences are going to stay there through the summer, no matter what kind of work they do. It's there because Chapman Square and Loudon Square is the center of where they would really like to set up tents. And that's just my prediction. And it's just a way of dealing with it.
Well, I think it might actually prevent larger groups of people from congregating in those areas. So maybe they're just waiting for the temperature to go down, the figurative temperature, not the literal temperature, the figurative temperature of demonstrations and riots and things like that go down, and then maybe go ahead and remove those fences. But I hope that they're keeping people out of those.
So there's a little snippet about that park. Those fences have already been torn down and put back up due to social unrest. I know that because I sit on the Clean and Safe board, but I have to, there is a decrease in the rioting after 9 o'clock. We've seen we're in a quiet lull, which is good, right? Since the last few encounters we've had last month. So yeah, but yeah, those fences went right back up.
Yeah.
So.
And furthermore, the intent of the zoning changes is not to actually prevent campers from camping wherever they want. I don't know if the city is going to push back on that. You just have to look at Laurelhurst Park to see how hesitant they are to do anything. But the intent is to have these sanctioned shelters where a nonprofit can get a contract with the city to set up a shelter space, whether it be tents, buildings, RVs, it could be really anything. It discusses all kinds of things. And this nonprofit would get money in order to provide shelter space up to 6 months, but still shelter space for the city's homeless people in any sort of open environment. And so at least for that aspect, the changes in the city code have prevented that process from taking place within city parks and around the parks. The campers themselves, if they gather in areas, that's a whole separate issue, which I don't know how that's being tackled.
Great. All right, any other questions before we move on?
Steve had a comment. You want to ask it, Steve? We saw a special on Portland on CNN. I don't know if other people saw it. Did other people see it? Anyway, Steve has a comment. You want to say your comment?
Yeah, there was an investigative reporter from CNN that came in on Portland. It was about almost an hour long, and they interviewed all of these people, the Black Lives Matters, the moms, the dads, and everything else, leaders in the community. And I wondered whether anyone else saw that program and what their comments were. Well, look, I think
It's worth tracking it down. It was an excellent program.
The rest of the country is they think Portland is being downgraded, and the Keep Portland Weird thing is kind of falling apart. But they don't know that Portland is still Portland. It's, I mean, trouble is trouble, but Portland is not New York City. It's not Chicago. It's not Miami. And we don't even have a deep water port. It's not the same. They're making their predictions or their analysis based on circumstances that don't exist here, in my opinion.
Okay, well, that's an opinion. Sherry had an idea with all of these cruise ships that are not used. We bring one down to Willamette and we solve the housing crisis by putting everybody in a cruise ship.
They have kitchens. They have a medical facility. They're set up. I mean, does that sound crazy?
Sherry, I kind of like what you're putting out there. I kind of like it. You know what? Portland needs to think about everything at this point. I mean, look at us. So, I mean, hey, maybe I'm scared to get on a cruise ship. So maybe they can sanitize it and make them accessible shelters. I mean, they're already ready to go.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, who's going to go on a cruise this year?
Right. That'll help keep Portland weird.
Yes, keep Portland weird. We have a cruise ship for a shelter.
It may destroy the environment along the way, but that may be a secondary issue to the cruise ship.
Well, the environment's getting destroyed anyway. The graphic descriptions, of the way people are living with feces and the trash and everything else, and just the footprint of all of these people is pretty horrible too in terms of the environment. So I mean that in itself is worthy of a whole evening meeting about the environmental degradation of all of this.
Yeah, we could have Tiffany teach them all public health measures.
Definitely. Hey, Scott, do you mind if I take a moment, since we're still talking about the city council police budget, I just want to bring awareness that at our last PSAC, Public Safety Action Coalition meeting, we hosted the head of the FBI, Kieran Ramsey, and as well as Mike Schmidt, head of the DA, to talk about what issues are impacting our areas of downtown, and also that included gun violence. And one of our guests that I invited was Reverend Hennessy, and I want to bring awareness that he is the head of IPAC, which is he's a Black faith-based leader in North Portland, where we do see most of the gun violence. I know that Chief Davis I was sitting on a conference call with Reverend Hennessy, talking about how gun violence impacts so many communities. It might not impact our downtown communities much. They said by shell casings that are picked up, Northwest District in Northwest Hills right there had practically no gun violence. So that just shows that neighborhood might not have the perception like other neighborhoods do. We had someone that was shot in Pearl District in the last 2 weeks. We had someone that was gunshotted last week in Old Town Chinatown. So this happens in our neighborhoods. This might not happen as much in Goose Hollow, but the neighborhoods of East Side and North are directly impacted, and this really hurts those communities. So we need to pay attention. I did notice that. This is what I'm saying about Reverend Hennessy. This is an outspoken leader of those communities really putting himself out there to stop gun violence. And he lost a family member, I think May 12th, to gun violence. And those communities up in North Portland, the first thing they said was, we want more police presence in our communities because of the gun violence. And they sent out extra officers after Reverend Hennessy lost a family member to gun violence. And you're probably seeing all the retaliation of gun violence that's happening right now, and that Emmanuel Hospital seeing. This is retaliation. And so when we were hosting the FBI and Mike Schmidt, we talked about this, and we went into specifics. So if you all want the minutes to that, to see that conversation take place. But back to Reverend Hennessy, this is a real loss for the community. And I took a call, I was actually late to this meeting tonight because someone in the North Portland neighborhood reached out to me about how upset this makes their communities feel when they lose people like that are important in the community. So it's just interesting that we may not feel it as much in our area, but this is what Portland is feeling. And I know that our mayor's office is supporting an event called March for Murder, and I would like to be there for this. It's on May 22nd. It's at Peninsula Park, and they march to
March
Woodlawn
Against
Park.
Murder or March for Murder?
March, oh gosh, here it is. March for, what did I say? I hope I didn't say the wrong word.
You said March for Murder. I was hoping that was not the case.
March. Forgive me. Let me see what the name of it.
I was thinking the same thing. I was gonna check.
I'm so tired. I've been on so many. Okay, excuse me. March Against Murder. Whew, I am so tired today. But anyway, the reason why I feel this event is more important than most is I don't like marches that happen after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, because we all know what happens after that hour. This one is actually between 1 and 4 o'clock. And the purpose of this march is to make a statement that, yes, Black men and Black communities are against premeditated taking of life, but they also want to call out the American culture for promoting violence as a legitimate form of conflict resolution. Now, I emphasize that they don't want violence. That's not the answer. They want to peacefully march for this, not after 9 o'clock, what have you. And that's how I read this. And so if you guys want to join me, I would like to do that. They have some great speakers that will be there, like Word is Bond and other prominent leaders. So I just wanted to give a little shout out. Like, these communities actually want more police services right now. So we need to listen to that as well. Thank you so much. There's my talk.
And is that at Peninsula Park this Saturday?
Yes, Peninsula Park here. I'll go ahead and say it again. And I should put it in the chat here. I should. Saturday, May 22nd from 1 to 4. Start at Peninsula Park and march to Woodlawn Park. Yeah, and I'll probably just reach out to all these communities that I care about, and I will walk with them, because this is important to our crisis. Kitty, sorry, Kitty. Thank you so much. I'll put it in the chat.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're gonna switch topics to block 7. I just want to give an update. Normally I would be giving this during the planning committee meeting report, but I just wanted to make sure to make it one of the bullet points, simply because every time we have a meeting on this topic, we get about 40 people showing up. So I know it's an area of interest, and I just wanted to give you kind of a quick update on where we are on that. The planning committee had a meeting with the developers and the architect on May 5th. And that is supposedly the final design. This is the design that they have submitted to the city. It is essentially unchanged from when they proposed it a year ago. They've changed a few like balconies, but as far as the massing, it's still enormous. It's still 17 stories tall. It still will have about 400 parking spaces, but it hasn't yet made it onto the design review calendar. So I don't have anything to report to you in terms of when we can start writing letters and comments and when to show up at the meeting and what to say. But you've probably been the recipient of very long, detailed, wonky analysis of height and FAR and design review criteria and things like that. And I just wanted to make sure to kind of get them get that information in a document so that you're aware of kind of what the issues are. But the bottom line is that they are legally able to build a property that large, meaning that they're not doing anything that violates any particular zoning code. And the reason for that is because they're in the central city, just barely, but they're in the central city. And they're just outside the historic neighborhood boundary of Kings Heights. They can go ahead and build this structure 17 stories tall. What they're going to come up against is the idea of floor area ratio FAR. And that's how bulky the building is. Just to give you, and that's the ratio of how much floor space there is in the building, square footage, and this building's around 400,000 square feet. And you compare that to the square footage of the land that it sits on. And so if you look at a property like the Vista St. Clair, which is a really large building, the FAR on that building is about 4.25 to 1, meaning that there's 4.25 times interior space as there is land space. The Madera Main Street project is more than twice that, meaning it's more than twice as bulky. It's 9.23, 9.25 to 1. The city will allow on that particular property 4 to 1, because they're doing inclusionary housing, add 3 to 1, so now they're up to 7 to 1. And then the rest of it they have to make up by buying, essentially, the rest of that FAR from a historic property, like Zion Lutheran Church or something like that. And I've talked to the city, and they say that that is somewhat rarely done just because of all the hoops they need to jump through and how expensive it is to come up with a seismic reinforcement plan for that historic space, which is a requirement under it. So that's one of the reasons why I've asked the developer several times during these meetings, do you have properties where you can make up the difference and get the FAR that you need? And the answer is always the same. We haven't identified those properties yet. So I suspect that they're just going to go through with this plan, shop it in front of the city, get approval, and then they'll know, essentially, they'll run the numbers again and say, hey, we have $5,000 or $5 million to buy this extra FAR. And then they'll go ahead and shop it around and try to buy it from different people. So when certain interested parties go to testify in front of the design review, they're going to need to understand the topics that make a difference in front of design review. Talking about parking is not going to make a difference. Talking about how bulky the building it is compared to the rest of the neighborhood is, because that talks to the issue of context, which is one of the criteria that design review looks at. And so we'll have more to talk about maybe in the next month or two, and I'll keep on checking the website to find out, if it's been updated to include the hearing date. But I know that there are several organizations. I know, Sean, that Friends of Goose Hollow is very interested in that. And you know that I've tried to put you in touch with the Vista House folks, because they're equally interested. And I think that through the advocacy of both of those, and maybe with support of the neighborhood, that we should make a pretty good showing. So with that, I'll just open it up to questions. Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, I was curious what effect, because I know it was never settled, I think it was in 2018 in their previous revision with the trees. Is that something that could curtail them, or are they just going to have to pay extra money to knock the trees down?
Chances are they're probably just going to end up paying extra money to knock the trees down. I know, Sherry and Steve are very concerned with that. Sean, I don't know if you've taken a look at that extra issue, but one of the links that I sent with that long email to everybody includes the big city document that includes the forestry report of what is required on that property. And I suspect that everything can be solved with payment of money, and that's probably the direction that they're going to go.
Well, I know at one time Sherry had mentioned, I can't remember whether it was Audubon or some other organization, had mentioned migratory birds. Is that something that perhaps could curtail them, like the spotted owl did with lumber.
There are, so there's a woodpecker, a migratory downy woodpecker,
Right.
and there was something else. Martin Nicholson, from the curator of the Hoyt Arboretum, came out there, and of course he knows about it, but he also recommended the Audubon, and we had that Audubon lady come out. Remember, I forget what her name was, and she reiterated.
Well, can that be documented so that it could be presented at one of these hearings? And perhaps that's something that, if nothing else, will slow down the process.
Right. I have another idea too. And that is under the report, America the Beautiful report, building on the Great American Outdoors Act of 2020 that has $3 billion in it for a grant program to create local parks. If we can apply to that, we can buy them out and create the local park there and name it after Nick Fish. But that might be tough. We'll have to figure out how to do it.
Someone says, I understand the Migratory Bird Act does not protect the habitat of migratory birds.
That's incorrect.
Yeah, Lori, it was Lori that put it. So Lori, what did you mean? I wasn't aware of that. Can you tell me, do you know something I don't?
Yeah, well, I looked it up online from one of our previous meetings, and from what I could understand of it, it protects like hunting of migratory birds. Like you can only hunt a migratory bird, during license season, and you can't kill them during nesting season, but I didn't see anything about protecting their habitat.
Well, they nest there.
Yeah, and the downy woodpecker is a common species. It's not anywhere near endangered like the spotted owl. So, but I'm just a novice, just looking that up.
Yeah. So I think just to kind of just to cut this short, the next issue is going to be design review, and so there are so many issues, parking and all that other stuff. We should really focus in the next 2 months on that particular issue, because that's going to be the next hearing. So there can be kind of ancillary discussions on those other things, but it's just going to be kind of distracting us from kind of the issue. I think we've kind of been all over the place on this project, and we need to start getting if there is consensus among the board to oppose the project, then we can do that. We haven't taken a vote on it yet, but there are advocacy organizations which certainly are opposed to it. And I feel like, at least my job on the planning committee meeting is to feed people the correct information so that they can act on it appropriately. And then if people feel strongly as a board that we can go ahead and take the position and, support or oppose the project and act accordingly.
Sounds good.
I second it. Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Doug, do you have a comment?
To get rid of the ancillary issue of parking, the Mac Club is looking for income for decades to come or longer from doing that, putting in that parking. You're not going to be able to buy them out. So the parking is just, from their viewpoint, required. I've said.
Yeah, I've made this point before. They do a survey every year, every other year, and parking is always the biggest issue of the club. It's not, oh, there's not enough workout space or something like that. It's parking. And so the board of directors and the president of the club, they take a look at these surveys and they say, what can we do? We have this property that is costing us money. What can we do? And so this is the solution they have. They say we can get rid of this property and at the same time get parking. And I don't fault them for coming to that conclusion if that's what their membership is saying. But I suspect that Doug is right, that there's not a way that you simply say, here, Mac, we'll buy the property from you for $10 million. I just don't think that that's going to be what they're looking for, because they have a perceived parking problem and they're going to try to solve it. And this is how they've gone ahead and tried to solve it with this project.
I just, I know this is again a little, I just don't see how the MAC sees there's a parking problem. Yeah, at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6, there's a bit of a parking problem, but it's not, it's, I guess during Timbers games too, maybe, but it's not that, there's not really a parking problem,
Yeah, well,
in
so,
my opinion.
so the thing is, us telling them that they don't have a parking problem doesn't do any good.
Yeah, I get that.
So we can say that all day long, and they're just, they've already come to the conclusion that they have a parking problem because 30% of the members complain about parking. Whether it's a real problem or not a real problem, this is their perceived problem that they're trying to address with their project. So, all of the, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about, oh, you don't really need that parking or something like that. Those arguments make absolutely no difference to the MAC. They're still going to go forward with the project. The best that we can do, and I think I'm starting to come to this conclusion, is focus on the issue. The building is frankly just larger than any other structure in the entire city in terms of bulkiness, with the exception of one, and it is by far the largest RM4 project in the city by a factor of 2, and by a factor of 2 of any project in our neighborhood in terms of FAR usage. So that might make a difference. I don't know. But for someone in, Friends of Goose Hollow's position, or the Vista House condos people, that's probably going to be the best bet. So we'll continue working on it and sending out information. And as soon as I know more, I'll go ahead and send it out.
I'd just like to add to this, though. One thing that the Friends of Goose Hollow will be doing is we've been collecting a lot of feedback from the community through other DARs over the last year. We've kind of tried to consolidate the arguments that we've heard on our website so that folks who want to begin preparing testimony or want to start pulling from ideas can go there. And it's just a way to kind of like get the thought process going about what you want to present. And I think that, when it comes down to the kind of arguments that we can present, it does kind of fall into some categories of like what is good taste, and then there may be some other legal avenues that we can pursue. And so I can just say that there are some efforts in place to go that route as well.
Yeah.
Well, can I just say something? One of the things that Tracy did for us as a family has been doing it for years, is that she will prepare testimony for the 3 of us. So Steve, myself, and our son. So we get a block of time. If you go before the city council, you get 3 minutes. So Tracy was able to get 9 coherent minutes of the same topic by writing it for us. And of course, she writes it in such a way that, Steve and I could never, put the thing together, because she's just hitting all the right notes. Like Scott was saying, about, this may sound good, but don't go here, don't go there, focus here, focus there. This is what we need to do. So in my opinion, there are people that can prepare testimony if they want to, but I think it would be really terrific to have some people that are really in the know and really know where to just zero in on the testimony, to write testimony for people, and just have volunteers be their mouthpiece. That worked out very well, when we went before city council.
Yeah. Well, I suspect, Sherry, that we're definitely going to be having at least one meeting before the design review meeting, and so we can discuss this further. We'll certainly be discussing it further if we know more information at the planning committee meeting. So we can go ahead and talk about that just to make sure that there's a cohesive message that's best for the neighborhood. Okay.
Can I say something else too? That it just seems to be like people are acting like there was never a pandemic. Do we, it's like the MAC Cub is plowing through as though there was never a pandemic. Do they know really what life is going to be? I understand, for example, that a lot of gyms are hurting because during the pandemic, people couldn't go into gyms. So they just went out and bought their own home gyms, and they have no intention of going back to a gym. Does the MAC Club really know what their needs are at post-pandemic? Has anybody bothered to do any research?
Well, I know that a lot of the membership, it's always been, they have way more members than actually use the MAC. But that's always been the case, even before the pandemic. So who knows what the plan is? I know they've redone a bunch of stuff. Now you have to go through these turns. They're doing this turnstiles. I don't know if everybody's gotten their new cards or whatever you have to do. They use half of the parking.
I can speak a little bit to this. As someone that sits on committees, I know budgets have been slashed, staff have been dismissed. I think the long-term goal with the MAC is events. That's going to be a moneymaker. And they need parking if they're going to take that long-term.
That's the point I wanted to make.
That's the money trail.
Selling parking for the events. They'll probably have 200 spaces to sell to VIPs or something.
Well, wait a minute, aren't they a nonprofit? Isn't that illegal what they're doing?
That's very nice, but they have operating, they can put everything in their operating budget, and people are drinking less, so they're making less money off the bars, so.
Gosh. Oh.
All right, well, can we move on? I mean, we're already getting close to a 2-hour meeting, so can we move on to the next topic? Believe me, we're gonna have more to say about this. This is not going away. We'll talk more about Block 7. But I wanted to move on to Goose Hollow Days. I know this issue was postponed from the last meeting. It looks like that we've made a tremendous amount of progress on the COVID front and the governor's rules about communities getting together, and it just seems like it's just accelerating. The vaccines seem to be even way more effective than our wildest dreams, and chances are we're going to be. I mean, we already can go ahead and mix in large groups as long as we're vaccinated. So the question, and I just want to raise this as a motion now, that we establish a Goose Hollow Days committee to investigate when and how to have a Goose Hollow Days event this year. They might come to the conclusion that it's just not going to happen, but if we don't start now, then it just won't happen. So I'm just going to put that motion out there. If someone can second it, then we can have a discussion and then vote on it.
I'd like to second it.
Okay.
My only issue is, and this comes up every time we do this, please do not have it on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. We've been having it in between, the sort of sweet spot in between, but it would be great if we could do it, avoid the holiday altogether.
Right.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Actually, I just got this earlier today from PBOT. I can send it to you as board members, called Healthy Blocks, where they're talking about what they're going to be doing about street closures this summer. They've lowered the fees. Some of them are free. In the past, we had to buy stanchions to close the street. Now they're going to allow you to use garbage cans and things along those lines. So I'll send that out. But I think what needs to be done or considered as you go forward, and I'm not saying yay or nay, is will we be able to get MAC permission? Will the Zion Lutheran Church be involved, which they were last year? They were more or less the leaders, and we had, I think, 1 or 2 board members who kind of monitored things. And something else to perhaps consider is for this coming year, going back to the Goose Hollow picnic, which was sponsored by Providence Park. And we were pretty successful with that, with getting new members. It's only for people within the Goose Hollow community. And I have a feeling Providence Park would probably say okay to that in their common area. The other things to consider is where we were getting funding in the past. Will Providence Park provide us with what they did previously? Or are they going to say, hey, we haven't had any attendance here for 2 years and we're only at 25% capacity, we can't help you out? So I think those are the things that you need to consider. And from my perspective, to seriously consider a Goose Hollow picnic in lieu of for this year, because we know when we hit 2022, things will more or less will go back to normal. The other thing is with the healthy blocks, and there were no statistics listed, is how far apart are the tables going to have to be? In the past, they were abutting each other. So each table was either 8 or 10 feet. They might say you have to keep 10 feet or 15 feet apart, similar to what they're doing at the farmer's market. That's doubled in space.
Yep. So I can speak a little bit to that, Eric. So the first thing is Zion Lutheran going to be involved? I talked to Melody Hughes and Pastor Dan, and they said they're in if we want them. So we can use kind of their energy and manpower and things like that, and they are willing to make it work. It is my intention, and I have not contacted the Timbers yet, it is my intention to have a neighborhood picnic. The only thing that the Timbers did is the 1 year, instead of giving us the picnic, they gave money to the Goose Hollow Days. This year, I intend to do both. Hopefully, we can go ahead and do one earlier than the other. But frankly, I just don't know what the Timbers are willing to do, whether it would have to be outside or if it can be inside. But my intention is to contact them probably right after this call and find out what they're willing to do.
Well, I would suggest that if the Timbers were to go with a picnic, to not do it when they have one of their games. It's usually one of the sub games, and they put us in a little section.
Yeah.
When they've had the picnic where it's just been Goose Hollow neighborhood, there's a lot more camaraderie and interaction among the people that are attending. And also, the Timbers actually have given 3 times for the Goose Hollow Days. The first 2 was at $3,500, and the last one was at $2,500.
Okay, so does anybody have any more comments before we vote on whether to create a committee to investigate whether we can and should have a Goose Hollow Day celebration this year?
Well, I have one question then to ask. If this committee is formed, they then have to come back to the board to get approval to go forward with it?
Yes, I think first of all, we can vote on a mandate, which would be to investigate and report back to this board on what their findings are in terms of whether the recommendation is to hold it, when, and under what circumstances, how to do it. Because I suspect that, as you said, the distance of the tables from each other, that stuff is fluid and kind of hard to predict what it's going to be like in September or early October when this might happen. And so but the idea is that they would come back to us and give us a recommendation. And if they say, yes, we recommend that we go forward with it, and here's why, I suspect, I can't imagine that we would say, well, despite all that hard work, we're just not going to have it. So it would almost be, I suspect, like a rubber stamp from this board to move forward. But the idea is they would have to come back and report to us. All right. So all in favor of creating a committee to look at the possibility of doing Goose Hollow Days, raise your hand, please.
Let's see here. Wait a minute.
Thank you. Is that a raised fist, Catherine, or is that a no? Okay. All opposed? Steve's opposed. Catherine?
No, Steve is not opposed. Steve is
okay.
in favor of. He just didn't take his hand down.
All right. So does anyone on this call, I mean, the motion passes, does anyone on this call want to be the Goose Hollow representative to the committee? It can be more than one person. And
I will be happy to be one of a group. I don't want to have the sole responsibility, but I'll help if
we want someone to be the driver for this.
I don't think I'm in the driver's seat. I'll let a younger person do that.
I'm looking around.
I would, but I got to go to Greece in July. I would, but I'm going to be in Greece for work in July. And if you guys want to talk about logistical nightmares, try dealing with the Greeks and their COVID protocols. and getting a ship in their ports and getting out. So
Wow.
I'm happy to serve with Sherry, but I don't know if I can be the liaison because in the bulk of July, I'll be essentially out of reach.
Okay. Well, if nobody else is volunteering, how about if Bridget and Sherry be our representatives? I suspect that Melody Hughes, like last time, will be a major driving force on that. But the idea is that maybe I'll go ahead and contact her with your information and maybe set up a meeting in the next few weeks just to get started on maybe scheduling when you're going to meet and just talking about some of the basics. And maybe just come back to the board at next month's meeting with just a preliminary report on.
And what kind of stuff like you guys want to know? Because more than anything, it's like I want to collect the information because Eric brought up some really good points.
Yeah.
And I want to streamline this for everyone and get the people what they want to know. So maybe when we're emailing, we can just identify the things that folks need to know so that when we report, we're kind of, you know, checking the boxes, getting folks what they need.
Okay. All right. Eric, I know you've been involved in organizing this in the past. Do you have any recommendations for them in terms of decision?
Well, with what I just said,
with?
What I just sent from PBOT, I think would be a very good starting point because they'll be able to give you some background, excuse me, background on how many tables and what the criteria are. As I say, I believe it'll be less expensive than it had been in the past, and perhaps getting in touch with Zion Church to find out how involved they want to be. For the first 2 years, this was just done really by our board members. Right. Last year, it was pretty much done by the Zion Church. I think Tracy and Michael were on their committee. I'm not sure. But they more or less did everything.
Yeah. Yeah. They had just a tremendous number of volunteers from their church show up. It was really an amazing thing that they did. The only hiccup was that we didn't get cars moved out of the way, and we had some like food trucks that had to park kind of in the middle of the street. So it was a little more constricted.
Well, that was because they didn't do their due diligence in terms of getting the signs posted. There was no parking. So that's why if you get in touch with PBOT, they'll be able to give you, you know, all the parameters that are going to be needed.
Right.
Then the other thing to keep in mind is that last time we did the Goose Hollow Days, it was just going to be on the dollars generated to put the Goose Hollow Days on. My assumption right now is I believe there's between $1,600 and $1,700 that was profit from the last Goose Hollow Days. That doesn't mean that this board cannot approve more money. But in the past, we had gotten $5,000, I believe, from the automotive dealership on Jefferson, $2,500 from Providence or Peregrine, and then several other hundred, or I think it was done last time for about $4,300. Previously,
okay, the scope of this is already overwhelming, but
well, as I say, get in touch with the church. They should have all the information from the previous time, and it's really how much of a burden they want to handle. We do need a board member or board members to participate, or at least to go to their meetings, so that it could be a liaison to us. Because then the bottom line is we're responsible. The other thing to perhaps consider, I don't know if it's possible, would be to get a grant from NWNW. We did for the first 2 years, and then we were not eligible for the last one. So that's not something to really count on. And then it's a question, as I said, whether Peregrine, you know, how much they're willing to do, whether the automotive dealership, depending on the year that they've had. So it might have to be relatively bare bones, but the best thing is get in touch with PBOT, and they'll, on the information I sent on healthy blocks, and that'll at least give you the parameters in terms of how large or how small it may be. And then of course it comes down to whether the MAC will allow us to utilize the park.
Eric, can you be on
even
this
if it was
committee?
just that staging area.
Eric, can you be on this committee, exploratory committee? I just feel like
I'm
you have the
actually,
knowledge and I don't.
Do it, Eric. Do it.
I don't want to do this.
no, I'm leaving town next week for 2 weeks. I come back for a week, then I'm gone for a month.
Okay.
So you can always email me. I'll be ever happy to give you whatever information. But put the onus in this case on the Zion Church.
Yeah,
They-
and what I'd love to do is come up with a playbook so that this isn't dumped on people every year and they're scrambling and emailing. So maybe as we start to do this, even if it's just exploratory, we can put down points of contacts and helpful websites. So our emails aren't inundated.
And as I say, if not that, as Scott had mentioned, to consider the picnic, which is incredibly easy. The biggest thing we need to do for that is bring membership forms. Everything else is taken care of. So that could be a suitable alternative until we hit 2022.
Yeah, you know, you may have a point, Eric. At first I was feeling kind of sad. And then the more I thought of it and I looked at poor Bridget's face, and I know myself that you know, my energy levels are just not up to the task.
And I love Goose Holidays. I want to do it too, but I just think a picnic, given the circumstances and the accelerated timeline, but I guess that's why we're having this exploratory committee.
Right.
We'll collect what we can, we'll report to you guys, and then everyone can make a decision before our return on investment and time expenditure is.
So I just want you for the next month, I know, because it seems overwhelming if you start talking about fundraising and getting all the booths and stuff like that, it's overwhelming. For the first month, just discuss whether it's possible. Just discuss
Hey,
whether it's possible.
Tiffany here, just to let you know, street festivals are happening. Old Town Chinatown is big into this right now, and I'm going to go down on May 20th to the 23rd. They're at 140 Northwest 4th Avenue. We're actually celebrating Asian Heritage Month in Old Town. If you want to see this, the most, say, 4 of the most amazing Asian artists from our community with their artwork. It's on there. I'm going to look at their street festival. I'm going to look at their tables. I'm going to look at their food and their chairs and how much people. But their last week, I think Old Town actually had another one of these events, and they had 1,000 people that came through in one day. That's a big deal. 1,000, I couldn't believe it. I wasn't there for that, and they swore it happened. But I'm trying to get the Chinese dragons to come back for this event because we need to bring people back to our communities safely now, right? So this can happen. I want to see Goose Hollow Days happen. So I'm going to take some great notes for you guys. I'm going to look at the healthy street closure and all the distance and all that, and I'll report back to you. But please, I'm going to put it in the chat. If you guys want to get out into your community, see some other street festival, go for it. Here's the little image. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Catherine?
Yeah, I just was looking for some clarification because it was my understanding from that vote that it was going to be the committee's recommendation that we just sort of went with, that the board wasn't necessarily going to vote on that, rather than, as Bridget had just mentioned, you coming back to the board with information and us taking a vote on it.
Well,
Is that correct?
so the idea, the concern that Eric has had in the past is that the committee never really reported back to the board. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen. I don't suspect, especially with all the work that the committee is going to do, that if they come back and say, we can do it and we recommend that we go forward with it, I just can't imagine this board saying, well, you know, I don't think.
Okay, I'm not going to plan Goose Holidays. I just signed up on here because I want to like do what I can, but I'm not getting stuck with this. I'm not going to deal with the critiques and the budget. I'm already regretting my decision.
I'm basically lukewarm on the whole thing. If we're going to have a picnic, but you know, investigate what's possible, but it's the board decisions about what's going to happen.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We're getting close to 2 hours. I'm going to share the screen of this next topic. This is the Goose Hollow fact sheet that I put together For Commissioner Hardesty's meeting, I'll give you kind of a brief explanation of what went on during that meeting. I don't want to spend too much time on this. It's a lot of pretty pictures, not a tremendous amount of information, but we have a whole backside of the sheet that we can fill with all the great things that the neighborhood has done and other information as well. So I don't know if you want to discuss the additional information that we can put on it now, or give some thought to what the additional information will be. The purpose of this is to have a one sheet of paper, and we can even hand this out during Goose Hollow days to people that are visiting, that tells about our neighborhood. And this is something that we can keep essentially forever. It will change over time, but the idea is that we want it as a quick kind of primer on what we do here in the neighborhood and where it is and who lives here and so forth. So does anybody have, before we move on to the next topic, does anybody have anything obvious that I may have missed from this document that we can easily add? Otherwise, I'll just kind of go ahead and mull it over the next month or 2 or 3 or 6, and we can go ahead and modify this document over that time.
Scott, I don't know if this is a good thing or not. It's just the thing that came to my head, to the top of my head, is that Bud Clark really, is associated with Goose Hollow and the Goose Hollow Inn. And I don't know, it would be terrific to have a picture of Bud Clark, or a picture of Bud Clark and the Goose Hollow Inn, or something like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I certainly think that it is, an important historical and, current social activity hub in our neighborhood. So I would love to do that. I would not want to do it without asking them first, obviously, and I just didn't have time because I needed to do this last minute. So I will reach out to the family and find out if Bud is willing to allow his picture and the Goose Hollow Inn to be used as part of this.
You know what I have here? Does anybody see this? I mean, am I trying to put this? How do I do this, Steve?
No. I saw that.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like have that little logo somewhere. That
Right.
same picture.
And so when we put those postcards out, we actually did ask Bud whether we could use his picture, and Nick Clark was on the board at the time, I believe. And
yeah.
So that wasn't an issue, but for something like this, I think we would need to reach out again to ask. But
sure,
I think,
of course.
Especially as recognizable as he is and important as he is to the history of the neighborhood.
Scott, I'd like to add something. Is it possible on that little map up top to add in maybe just like a couple of stars, or like a little marker around some historical spots around the neighborhood? Or just cool things, like there's an amazing huge tree I know that's on the registry in Goose Hollow, like a little addition there to encourage people to walk around and get kind of into the neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that would be wonderful to maybe do on the back. The reason why I have it on the front and have kind of an expanded map is because Commissioner Hardesty probably has no idea where Goose Hollow is in the context of the city. And so I was trying to say, oh, well, that's the Willamette River and that's downtown and that's 405. I recognize that. Oh, that's the boundaries of Goose Hollow. But what we can do is have an expanded version of just Goose Hollow with exactly what you said, with those stars and some kind of points of interest, so that if somebody has this sheet, they can go on their own guided self-tour or self-guided tour of the neighborhood. I think that's a great idea.
That would be cool for the back if we could do that. And then Sherry, I think just to address the Bud Clark postcard that's been sent out, I know this was brought up around the postcard as well, and I think kind of the idea is that image doesn't quite represent the diversity that we want to represent in Goose Hollow and sort of the other issues and awarenesses that need to be happening around the community.
So to that end, do you notice how many times I used the word diverse in this document, knowing that who it was going to, Commissioner Hardesty?
I'm going to say you nailed it. I think we need to know our audience here, Scott, and the audience. I noticed you even have, there's women featured, there's diversity in this. It's clearly legible. We're only going to have her attention span for a few minutes. She doesn't know where we are. This isn't going out. I mean, the picnic is icing on the cake, and sharing this with the neighborhood is icing on the cake. But the immediate need is getting in front of this commissioner and letting her know who we are. So I think this is a great piece, and you've done a wonderful job, and we really appreciate it.
So is no pity the correct message for this document? I don't know. I just put it in there because it was a cool picture. So that
I
was
think
actually-
I think you did an excellent job. It's what, you know, I would trust your judgment. If you think that Joanne Hargestey is going to like something, that I will trust your judgment on it, Scott. That you know this lady more than, or understand her more than I clearly do.
Oh, well, so I originally created it for them, but for her, just so she could have a quick cheat sheet about our neighborhood. But really, this is intended to be used for I mean, could be decades, to inform lots of different people about who we are, where we are, and what we stand for, and stuff like that. So we'll get to work on it. Catherine, I don't know if you have some ideas of where to put the stars, but maybe just send me a list and I'll try to create that map and put it on there. Everybody else, just go ahead and give me a list of other information or ideas that we can put on the back here, so we have a one-page handout for people.
Oh, one thing I forgot to bring up, Scott, is that I want to take the lead again on the Heritage Tree tour with Martin Nicholson from the Hoyt Arboretum. I've done that every year with the Goose Hollow days, and I'd like to continue to do it, to be added to it, so I can, as soon as we know it, if we go through with it and we have a date, then for the weekend, then I can immediately get a hold of Martin Nicholson to start planning my my tree tour.
Well, even if we don't have Goose Hollow days, we can still go forward with that as an activity, a separate activity.
Okay,
Sherry,
I love that.
If you happen to have a list, I would have sent him a list of all nature tree stuff anyway. So if you have a list of the other heritage trees in the community and where they would go on a map, that would be amazing. And sort of what I was thinking of.
Yeah, who has it is the urban forestry, Steve.
Yeah, we have.
We have a copy of it. It's rather extensive. And actually, we live at the 2393, butting up against Washington Park, and we have a heritage tree that not only is a heritage tree because it's extraordinary, but it was on the property of this was part of the Pittock estate at one point. The other thing is that Steve and I have been, and Daniel and I have been trying to get the Hoyt house, Mr. Hoyt's house. What is the name of that street? Is that Main Street?
Yeah.
That Steve and Daniel did just a phenomenal amount of work, and we're still trying to get that lady to sign off so that we can get that into the Heritage Tree Program. And that giant sequoia. I mean, it's an amazing tree, and it was planted by Mr. Hoyt from the Hoyt Arboretum and whatnot. So there's a lot here, in our neighborhood in terms to just, ooh and ah over when it comes to trees.
Hey, Scott, I saw this flyer that you created and I was just so blown away. I saw a few other neighborhoods flyers. Do you think ours was pretty darn cool and right there in the front in terms of just awesomeness? Or can you give us perspective of what other neighborhoods came up together with?
If you're interested, so this was inspired by what the Pearl District put together, and the Pearl District was basically all text. And so I'll go ahead and send that to everybody because it basically is a brag sheet of everything that the Pearl District does, which is a lot. But it was very uninspiring in terms of design. And so I went the opposite way, which was lots of pretty pictures and color and maps and not as much information. So I think that ours, looks really good, but then again, I put it together, but it's very different from what the Pearl District put together. And I'll forward that to everybody so that people understand kind of what the differences are. So it's not necessarily a good or bad thing, it's just different.
One of the things that I think you did this just right on that I think is really important is that, you have this paragraph where you talk about 80% renters and the percentage of low income and subsidized housing and people on food stamps. There is a perception that people have about Goose Hollow that is not correct. which is that they see these houses in Kings Hill and they think, oh, everybody who lives here is a millionaire, and it's not the case. And so I really like the fact that you showcase that.
Right. Yeah, only Catherine and Sean. No, no. Well, thank you, everybody.
Part of that statement's true.
I look forward to getting your feedback on that, and we'll just make this really, really cool thing. A quick update on the postcard. I know we have kind of a deadline coming up at the end of June. We already have the artwork, and I don't think it will be too much to take it over the finish line, but Catherine, actually, let me go ahead and stop sharing. There we go. Yeah, so Catherine, Marlene, go ahead and give us an update on what's going on.
I gotta unmute. I'm on my iPad this time. For some reason, the camera on my computer doesn't work. So now I'm figuring where everything is again. Well, Scott was with me and we had a very productive meeting. I think with Anastasia, she really pointed me in the right direction in terms of what the content should be on the back of the postcard. So it's just a matter of putting some new words in there, but I was also waiting for this meeting to see if we wanted to include any information on the picnic or Goose Holidays. So I don't think we have any, because we're gonna have to print, or we can wait. I can, like Anastasia said, I could get the checks cut out and we can wait to print, because there's nothing that says it has to be out by June. So I don't know, Scott, what do you think? Can't hear you.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Some of the ideas that I had for the postcard is strategies for getting to hold on to the postcard, because so many people will get this in the mail and then say, oh, that's nice, and pretty pictures and nice content and information, then throw it in the recycling bin right away. So one of the things that I suggested, if we did not know the date for the neighborhood picnic or Goose Hollow days or something like that, is say this postcard entitles you to free admission to the neighborhood picnic. And so that way they keep it, magnetized, connected
on the
fridge or something like that. And then they just hold on to it, and then they're looking at it for a few months before they actually have to use it. And it gives them information on how to sign up for information, for further information about the neighborhood. And if we don't have a date, say, date is going to be coming sometime in September, October, sign up for additional information, hold on to this. This is your ticket to get into to the picnic, or to, have a free drawing for, a door prize or something like that, then they'll hold on to it. But we definitely need some message in there that attracts their interest, keeps it, and makes them keep that postcard for as long as possible.
So the question then is, do we print before we know, or do we want to wait to print until we know?
Well, it sounds like, Marlene, that based on our discussions, that it would take only a few days to print. Is that right?
That's the last, from Brown Printing, the last thing she said was it would take about 3 days to print.
So we could potentially, wait until the next meeting and hear what the report is from the Goose Hollow Days Committee on whether we're even going to go forward with it. And they might have a suggestion they might have even come up with a very specific date. But I'm worried about having a specific date this early, simply because things are just so fluid and things change. So it might be that we would just give them kind of generalities of approximately when it would be, and have them sign up on our website so they can get notified when the actual date and times are for it.
And then we also have the option of prepaying, so we don't lose the grant money.
Yeah.
We can prepay the printer, and we can prepay the postage, and all of that.
So let's do this, Marlene. Let's just, we don't need to send it out in the next month. We might want to send it out by the end of June, but we can possibly prepay all this stuff and send it out later. So we can kind of delay the decision on exactly when to send it out and then just focus on what the content is going to be on the back of the card. Because the front of the card is done, right?
Yes,
The artwork is done. It's just
Yeah.
getting the content on the back. So
Yes.
do you need anything from us in terms of feedback on content, or you guys, you and Catherine know the direction that you need to go in order to kind of take it over the finish line?
well, it's up to you. If somebody wants to help out, that would be wonderful. I took notes on what Anastasia's, I think I sent an email on what her, right after we had the meeting, on what her suggestions were that to make it better content on there. But I was more concerned about printing or not printing, so at least it buys us some time. That's my main concern. We can decide however we want to do it, as long as the money, you don't want to lose the money first.
Yeah.
So we've got that. And if anybody wants to help out, I'm happy to send it out to the group or whoever wants to see it.
I'm happy to help, Marlene. Could we, if we have to spend the money or prepay, could we print one side of it, or is like a two-sided? Are they kind of running it through? Do you know? How many are we printing as well?
5,000, a little over.
Oh, okay, that's a kind of a smaller. Okay.
So I would prefer to get it all done at once. I don't want to have, I know how printers, I mean, I just don't want to have an issue with a printer and then this happens. That it's like, okay, let's just get, I mean, obviously I'll do a prototype before they do the whole 5,000, but I think, you know, we want to do that. And then the other part that I have a question for you, Bridget, is, and I think Catherine, we should figure out, like, we were going to send her a check. She gave me today, she sent me the email with the address so we can mail her the money. And Catherine was working on a letter to send her to say that, go ahead, Catherine, why don't you?
Yeah, so to say, her name is Lark, by the way. She's the artiste of the front of the postcard. And the question kind of is it, like, how do we work in Bridget's generous donation to her? Does that go in? Do we want that to go in with our letter? Are you comfortable sending that separate, Bridget? What's the protocol?
Really, it's totally up to you guys. What is our current, did we agree on 50 or 100 on behalf of Goose Hollow?
We agreed on 50 and then 50 for a second prize, but there was no second prize. So.
Hey, you know what, winner, if she, you know what, first come, first serve, she can take both. I'm happy to quietly add 50 to our master fund and we can just send her one check on behalf of everyone. Or if you think she wants to hear about the cartoons and my grandpa and it was inspiring, great. If not, whatever you guys want to do, I will follow your lead. I appreciate what you've done.
Do we have to? Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to say, I think if you want to share with her why you're donating and where that comes from in your heart, that she would probably really love to hear that from you.
Oh my gosh, I'll scan a picture, send a nice note.
Yeah.
I would love to do that if that's okay with you. And if you want, you can even send me your letter. I can print it. I can mail it with the check so we look official.
Yeah.
Let me know what you need to be done.
I'll ask her if she's comfortable with us giving you her address. And maybe you can send that to her on your own, or I don't know, we'll see. We'll work something out so that, yeah.
And then, wait, I just lost my train of thought. There was another question. Wait, so we're not sending all of it together then? The check from Goose Hollow and Bridget's?
I'm gonna ask Lark if she's comfortable with me giving her address to Bridget, so Bridget can write her a letter and mail that separately, and then the Goose, and then we'll send a check.
I can also give you the check from Goose Hollow. I have the checkbook here, so I guess there's a few ways to do this. I can go ahead and write the $100 check, and even just run it up to your house tomorrow on my way to work. And then that way you could manage that end of it. And then if she's comfortable, I can write a letter separately, or at another point in time, I can just send you a nice message in our own personal check from the trust.
Okay, why don't you hold on and I'll ask her and we'll get back to you in like a day or so.
And then the other question is, do we need to vote on that? Because officially it was the $100 for one, and then, I'm sorry, the $50 for one and the $50 for the other. I mean, can we just go ahead and give her the 100, or how does that work?
She was the only submission, just a heads up. There's not like there was 2 submissions.
But can we keep that on the down low? Because she was technically, there were,
Yeah, I don't know how to say that to her. Like, hey.
no, don't tell her, because she asked
Yeah.
me, did I win? And I said, yes, you won. And we're very happy with you. And it was beautiful. There were other submissions of designs that I had done.
Right.
So technically there were other submissions, and then there was the previous one. So we had other choices, but she was technically the only one from Lincoln.
Marlene, could I ask I would love to meet this young artist. And if we do Goose Hollow Days, could we feature her? Could she come by? Wouldn't that be super cool to meet the artist? And she probably has a life. I don't know. We're old people, right? But you know, wouldn't it be cool to have a little art table to have like little budding artists draw? I don't know, but anyway, but just to feature her art there. And
I don't know how it would work, but you know how we have the Goose Hollow sweatshirt, or the, you know, the logo on it. I thought, you know, who knows, maybe we could even have our own postcard from Goose Hollow without, maybe later, you know, to raise money for whatever we're doing, is sell her postcard, or something else. But, you know, Peyton Chapman really liked this connection. So in the future, you know, hopefully we can utilize the students more. I think we would have had more submissions if there was more time. But it's also hard to know that these kids put in so much time, and then you wouldn't choose, you know, if you have 10 kids who submitted, that's a lot of time to not get anything.
I was just going to jump in and say, Tiffany, we've talked, Marlene and I have talked to you about how, like, and maybe if this grant is something that continues, or it's something that we continue to choose to do, that it would be really fun to do, like, unveil the winner at Goose Hollow, and then, you know, do like a sort of a postcard like thing and whatnot, and that would be a way to gather more people. But Marlene, like, I don't know if this is worth anything, but I think that students putting that effort into things is stuff that they can use and grow from, and it ends up on resumes and college applications and trade school applications and whatever it is that you go on to do, and it just ends up being a good experience if we handle it that way and make it happy and kind of exciting for everybody that participated.
That's true. I thought Catherine's idea was great. If we ever wanted to do, like, at the picnic or at Goose Holidays, reveal who the winner is. Like, you know, and who knows, maybe we get a bigger prize pot, who knows, you know, but just something to think about.
Can we get a novelty size check printed?
I'm into it. I am so into it. I've wanted one my entire life. Yes, I would fund that out of my own pocket. I'm just tossing that out there.
And give it to you. Some scary van.
No scary van. No scary van. Just a giant check and some balloons. Also.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe the Oregonian would pick it up, or, you know, some of the other papers, but it's just positive news.
I have to say it's a feel-good story, and I couldn't help but gush about what you guys did to this committee, this MAT committee, and we have this empty wall, and we always feature artists. And I think this could gain traction, and this is whether I'm on the board next term or not. Like, I would love for us to maybe have conversations about, if we do get those 10 submissions and we're talking about exposure, we could feature their work. And they could visit the club. You know, there'd be security, but everyone could visit and see their work, and this like on this beautiful wall that's well lit, and their submissions. And it's an opportunity for us to share our information about what we do in the community. And like you said, it's about exposure. It's about getting stuff on resume. And if you're interested in graphic design or art or community outreach, to have your work featured and visit and get dressed up and speak about what you've done, like, those opportunities are amazing. And I just really admire that you guys did this thing fast and on the cheap. Anyway, Catherine, I'm going to email you so we know where I can send the check.
Okay, I just wanted to say too, even though I'm fully aware that it's 9:15 almost, but Marlene had a heavier hand in this project and did some really amazing things in terms of connections and design. So thank you so much, Marlene.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so sweet. You know, I think it was a big effort by everybody. And
Marlene, you dreamed it and you did it. Stuck at home in a pandemic. I don't know how.
It was Lark. I mean, she's the one who really did it.
I also heard you're a hard negotiator with printers on costs. Iron Lady is what I've heard.
Did you talk to Brown?
Hey, I respect it. You know, that's our money and it's nice to know you're taking care of it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I've done some other committees where we were very short on money and really talked people into lowering their prices. Yeah. Anyway, so that's going well.
All right. Hey, I know it's late. We do have committee reports, but I suspect that we've pretty much done everything on those reports, so we don't need to go through them. The last thing that I want to do is report on the Neighbors West Northwest meeting with Commissioner Hardesty. I'm just going to go through some bullet points that I wrote down during that meeting, just so you know what I heard. The first point made was the civic life report might be made public. That's what she said. As you probably all know, it's now been made fully public. And there's a lot of embarrassing stuff in there. Sukri is no longer at the organization. Item 2, the 3.96 code change, which talks about neighborhood associations not being kind of particularly favored. And there was something that we opposed simply because we think geographic representation, everybody, even if you're houseless, lives in a particular area and deserves representation, that code change is not going forward. And so the neighborhood associations will still have a favored position within the city government process. Houselessness, her direct quote is, "It will get a lot worse before it gets better." She did not explain why she felt that way, but that is her feeling. Number 4, the Portland Charter. And that is, whether we go from a weak mayor system to, a city manager system, a strong mayor system, that kind of stuff. She says she does not want to change the form of government because the current has more equitable outcomes. Take that for what it is. Number 5, neighborhood associations. This is pretty much exactly what she said. The neighborhood associations need more varied representation. Quote, "If your neighborhood doesn't reflect the population of your neighborhood," meaning the board, "then it needs help." That is her direct quote. Number 6, she does not believe in police body cams because she doesn't trust police to use or disclose the video appropriately. And 7, I don't have this written down, but it made a real impression on me. Someone asked the question, are you able to distinguish between valid Black Lives Matter protests and protesters in downtown and anarchists who are destroying our city? And she said that, yes, it's easy to tell the difference between, the people that are demonstrating and those that are breaking things. But the 30 some odd people that are breaking things, and she said this, if they were Black, they would be in jail by now. So that leads me to believe that it just reinforces my opinion that she sees every issue through a racial lens.
Yes, she's from Baltimore, and the ratio of Black, it's a majority Black city, and
Yeah.
Portland's like 6.3%. So
yeah. So I still don't know if she believes in the mission of the neighborhood associations, but she's paying lip service to the power of the neighborhood associations to affect change, so long as we act equitably. And so that's one of the reasons, and I knew this going in, why, and it's an accurate description of our neighborhood. We have a very diverse neighborhood compared to other neighborhoods in the city. And it is an urban neighborhood, and it does have a diversity of the economically challenged and those that are quite wealthy in our neighborhood. So we have a sprinkling of everybody. We're probably a very good representation of what the city is in total. Does anybody have any questions about kind of either my feelings or where we're going as a neighborhood? Yeah, Doug.
Did she say anything about, since she's gone back to supporting the neighborhood associations, about neighborhood watch in that program and the signs and everything that we need?
She didn't talk specifically about them, but I suspect that she still thinks it's a racist
Okay.
activity, I suppose. So, yeah, Vadim?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Everything is through an equity lens with her. Having been on the charter committee meetings, she is the only city commissioner that has specifically told people she's against reforming city government. Even all the bureaus that we've spoken to have said that they want a city manager, that the system of constantly changing bureaus around is not workable, that they constantly have to change direction and they lose money, they lose direction whenever there's new commissioners in charge, that people have their private commissions that they pay a lot of attention to, and other ones, private bureaus that pay a lot of attention to, and other ones they don't. But for Hardesty being in charge of the Fire Bureau, being in charge of PBOT, being in charge of these very large, very wealthy bureaus is very, very important, I think, to her ability to influence things within the city. And she is vehemently against it, despite pretty much everybody else saying that it's a good thing. Same thing with the body cameras. A report came out recently that body cameras do decrease lawsuits, decrease police violence. And the police want it, the mayor wants it, the Portland Police Association, the union wants it. She does not, which puts it on hold. And so it's kind of difficult to understand why some of these decisions are being made, but they're not the decisions of a lot of people that are out there working on these sort of things. So we'll see.
I'd like to, say that I agree with you, Vadim, and I'd like to also say is that, we've testified at City Council many times with Daniel, our son who's on the autism spectrum. And I have felt, and also from Chloe Daly, who's no longer there, just almost a hostility towards our son, because they look at him and he's white and he's middle class, but he's on the autism spectrum. And Daniel talks about disabilities, and it's just the mentality has been that how dare he, classify himself as disabled because, diverse because he has a disability. Like he doesn't have the politically correct diverse label on him, being a person who's neurodiverse. So, I have my own issues with the lady, but that's been my take on it.
Sherry, I've been pushing that on the Charter Commission as well, and David Galat, who works for Disability Rights, is on there as well. That disability should be a lens as well with respect to equity. There's disability equity along with other equities, and I think the city sorely does not use that. They don't hire people with disabilities in the same proportion as the population, and the Commission on Disability is defunct right now. So I'm in complete agreement with you. It's something that the city has not been focusing on.
Thank you so much. I'm losing my battery here. I'm going to have to sign off, or I'll probably get thrown off of my computer. But thank all of you. It was just an amazing meeting, and I just feel so proud to be a part of this community and the people that work so hard here. And Tiffany, in the back of my mind, you didn't laugh at me when I said use a cruise ship that's not load all the homeless people. Is that totally off the wall? Because I happen to know somebody in the cruise industry.
I was going to say, you're talking to someone in the industry right now. We have a bunch of empty ships that we've paid millions of dollars for, and we can't get our money back. So they're empty and waiting.
Well, that's really interesting. You could take what normally, I guess, if you were on the way to Greece or Hawaii or something like that, a room that would be ultra luxurious with a beautiful mattress and everything else. It has a cafeteria. If somebody gets sick, it has a hospital with, nurses stations.
I was going to suggest we host our next meeting on one of the ships, but we could hand it over to them too.
No, that's a great PR idea. No. Scott's not going to run off.
We have the right idea. That's our next neighborhood picnic. Can you get a Regent Seven Seas?
I can get us into Greece. But I don't know if I can get us out. We leave July 7th.
Oh my.
Well, I also want to repeat what Sherry said. I am so thankful for all the energy and time that this board is committed to this. I mean, I know like this meeting is almost 2.5 hours long and you're still here. So thank you for that. Continue to be well. I just, before we go, I want to find out kind of what your feelings are about holding an in-person meeting sometime in the near future.
Go for it. Go for it.
Should
Yes.
our next meeting be in person?
Oh, it would be marvelous. Will the Mac,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Catherine's like small shake of the head.
Can I propose that we give people some time to prepare? I've been in like all these crazy HR trainings, and not crazy. Sorry, that was not the right word, and I omit that. That's not the right thing to say, and I'm sorry I said that. But I've been in these trainings where we're talking about people's comfort level with going back to work and wearing regular clothes and saying goodbye to their pets. And those are kind of trigger issues for me, actually. But maybe if we just give people a window of time, and even members that might want to join in, and let them know, hey, listen, we're thinking about meeting in person again. Can people think about that for this time? And maybe I know the MAC isn't letting non-members in, but we could even reach out to them and say, hey, listen, how soon can we host something? I know we did PGE Park once. I'm not sure what the vaccination rules are, but if we submit proof of vaccination, I think as early as this Friday, restaurants are going to let folks in mask free as long as they provide a proof of vaccination. So I'm not sure what the process is there, but and I don't know if we want to do it outside. I guess things are warming up, but if PGE Park or Providence Park lets us in with proof of vaccination, maybe we could do something there. Or if we reach out to the MAC, just maybe giving people a timetable. That would be my only thing. And I'm ready to meet and raring to go. I mean, I'm leaving for Vegas on Sunday, but I just think maybe from what I've heard, if we give people a window, there might be more of a comfort level. And I just don't want to make people feel uncomfortable.
Well, Catherine, I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you were shaking your head, what is your comfort level? Like, what is a trigger for when you think it might be safe for us to meet in person again?
I guess I was thinking that I'm not even letting my clinicians bring clients in for in-person services yet. So it feels to me like I'm just quite not ready to go to a meeting like this. So I'm not sure on my end. I'm happy to call in and like just sit and listen and like still be a part of it.
Catherine, when would be a comfort level? Do you think August or September? I know a lot of kind of schools or universities or big programs are eyeing kind of Q4 for openings. Would you have a comfort level with that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good estimate. I also kind of just want to address what you were talking about, Bridget, and that's 100% accurate, that there's also like a period of transition and adjustment, not just for myself. I'm just thinking like in general as well. During this time period, I think also I can speak for myself as well. Like I sort of just kind of want to see what happens for a minute and just kind of absorb that and really think about whether that's something. I mean, I've been really careful and and cautious for the last, like, what is it now, 15 months. I just kind of want to like see that out to a point. I guess I can't quite put a date to that. I'm like more of a feelings person that takes in the data. And then I'm like, how do I feel about this? So yeah, I'm sorry. I can't really give a concrete answer. But again, like if you want to meet in person.
Would you be comfortable with us maybe sending out some kind of notice? I don't know if we need to do that, or just saying, hey, listen, we're thinking about meeting in the fall. Are you comfortable with that? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, that's kind of exactly, or it's like around the communication around it and just sort of, again, like transition is difficult for people. And I think, for me, it's just, I'm just kind of being cautious and
so maybe a soft deadline of August. We plan to meet in person in August, and we can work behind the scenes to maybe line up something. See who's willing to take us.
Yeah, I think, but like honestly, in terms of like everybody getting together, if there is also in the future probably going to be some sort of a hybrid model at times that would be helpful to establish and get used to. So I'm happy to call in to whatever that may look like.
Yeah, and a hybrid model sounds great as well. But it was really interesting when I went to 24 Hour Fitness in the Pearl, and they had a sign saying, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask indoors. But the majority of the people were still wearing masks, and I'm pretty sure the majority are vaccinated. So there's still people that are uncomfortable doing that. But there were also probably about 20% of the people that were there without masks. And so it's interesting to see how things are moving forward.
So I wanted to add my little bit with meeting in person, since we didn't start with me meeting in person. I can't be around fragrance or I get migraine.
Well,
So something to add for you guys, how you want to address that. But I cannot be in the meetings if someone is wearing fragrance.
So Marlene, how do you feel about body odor? Because if I bring my teenage son there, then the smell might permeate through the whole room.
I know, you know what? Back in the day, when I would travel to France and I'd get on a train and it reeked of body odor, and I was like, oh my God, like, where's the deodorant? And now it's just like, God, this is awful. I have to pick body odor over. I mean, it's just like, it's so awful.
You can't win.
You don't have to pick, Marlene. It's as simple as really somebody showing up at the meeting with their own laptop and creating a Zoom link the same way that we do this kind of situation, and just setting up a camera and people logging in.
so can we have it like a hybrid, like we have something in person, but people that feel that they're not ready to just to be in a group, or people that, you know, like Marlene, who feel that, you know, it's a health hazard for her because of her issue with the olfactory issues or whatever, for whatever reason, or somebody just doesn't feel in the mood and they want to sit at home. I mean, so we have a hybrid of both so people have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, but that seems like a reasonable accommodation to me.
Oh, and thank you, Catherine, for the comment about my picture. That's an
You're
Edna
welcome.
Hibble. It's an Edna Hibble, and it's the children of Israel.
I'll look it up. She has a picture behind her. This call that's been
Yeah.
beautiful. So
I think
sent her
that.
a message.
Thank you. I have another one that's from a lithograph of the one that's in Hadassah Hospital. I hope I'm not getting the names mixed up of the pictures, but Edna Hibble is the artist. Thank you. Glad you liked it.
All right, well, that is one of the wonderful things of these Zoom things, is we get to see what everybody's house looks like. So
yes,
one of these days we'll have you over to our place.
I was just thinking that, you know, we have a pool in the back, and last year it was, in the summer it was hot. We had the fire, and the condo board, in their wisdom, with only 37 people in the whole building, decided that we could not open the pool. So I'm facing the pool, and on a miserable day, I was looking at that pool and I was thinking about jumping in and getting a fine for disobeying the rules or whatever. The condo. I would love to open up the pool this summer to have a get together. That would be a lot of fun.
Better to ask forgiveness than permission, Sherry.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, well, great seeing everyone. Thank you for coming to the meeting, and
thank you.
Look forward to seeing you at the next one. Be safe, be well. Enjoy your
everyone. You too. You too.